Welcome to this module, and in this module we'll be covering the settings in OBS. So we'll click on settings. When we click on settings, we'll see all this tab. So we'll starting from down. Now this down part, here you have the advanced tab, and one thing I do recommend is you don't want to mess around this place except you know what you're doing and what you want to achieve with it. Basically, OBS general setting for the advanced tab, it's quite fine and it will optimize your system well and good enough for streaming. So let me just say this stream delay, it's one thing you might not even actually want to do, because OBS works well for streaming if you have a good and a stable network and if you get your settings properly. So this automatically reconnect apps to just reconnect. Probably you have network issues and OBS automatically reconnect to the internet so that your streaming can continue. And the network settings here, you don't want to mess around with this if you don't know what you're doing. Then the recording, yeah, this is the file name formatting. You want to leave it same. Here you have overwrite if file exists. Now this is just saying, okay, if I want to save a particular file that already exists on my file manager, OBS should overwrite the file, and this automatically removes to MP4. It means when your recording is saved as MKV, OBS automatically converts it to MP4 for you without having to go do it yourself manually. But basically you want to leave all this to unchecked. Now for the rendering, you want to leave all these settings same except you know what you're doing. Now the next part is the accessibility, where you have the opportunity to configure the colors on OBS the way you like. Now you could configure the source border, the source crop and whatever. Now for me, I don't want to configure anything because I'm okay with the color, so I'm going to leave that out. Now hotkeys, where hotkeys comes in handy is probably you have certain things you want to trigger during your live stream. You could set up an hotkey for it instead of having to do it manually. So you probably come here and punch in a key on your keyboard, then it's going to store that as an hotkey for you, so where you can easily just switch things with just a button. Now the next part here is the video. Now your base canvas should be your 920 by 1080 and 920 by 1080 for both the base canvas and output scale resolution. Now yours might not be this, it might be your system screen size that you might find there, but you want to change it to 920 by 1080 because this is what most streaming platforms support well. Now the next thing here you can see is common frame FPS value. Now this FPS means frame per second. Now most platforms have their required frame per second you should use for streaming. Now 24 is mostly used for film, and 30 supports most mobile device streaming platform and it's much more stable. Now 60 most times is used for fast-paced things like probably gaming and all of that. So each platform have their own requirement. For example, now YouTube support up to 60 FPS, but you don't want to use 60 FPS, but you want to use around 30, which is more stable, because the idea is that you want to balance stability and quality. So for me, I'll tell you to keep it at 30 FPS. So the next part is your audio. Now this audio is where you have to be careful. Now some sound cards support up to 192 kilohertz here as sample rate. Now when you use 192 kilohertz when recording on your sound card, it pushes the quality very high and make your audio size larger. Now OBS currently can support 44 and 48 kilohertz. Now whatever you set here, you must make sure that is what is exactly set on your audio interface, or there's what we call sample rate mismatch. So if I have 48 kilohertz here, I want to make sure that on my sound card or interface it is 48. Currently I have 44 here, but I'm not streaming, so I'll just let it slide. But if I'm to be streaming live, I want them to match. Now each streaming platform have their own requirements. So for example, YouTube support 44.1 kHz for stereo audio and 48 kHz for 5.1 surround sound. Now some platform can support 48 kHz for stereo. Now on my channel here, I have 48 kHz for stereo. Now, which means I am on the wrong thing because YouTube says for 48 kHz you're supposed to use 5.1, which is why you want to leave this at 44.41. But I will not do this because it will actually ask me to restart my program for this to take effect. So I'll just leave it as that. But you want to keep it at 44.1 because it's much more stable for all platforms, and I think all streaming platforms support that. So leave your channels as stereo. You don't want to use it as mono, or people will just be hearing this one-sided, or and it won't sound well. These global audio devices. Now, earlier in the other section when we were covering sources, I showed you how we could add audio input as sources. Now, the difference between that and this is this. Now, this desktop audio and all this audio input can be useful probably when you are just treating one scene. Now, when you're treating one scene, you can come here and choose your settings. For your desktop audio, you want to choose your audio interface, and for your mic, you might want to choose whatever mic you're connected into. But for me, I'll keep it at disabled because why? Now, when you're streaming, I'll explain it to you. When you're streaming, for example, you actually don't want your audio to be in all scenes. For example, there are certain scenes where you have just images, which you don't want audio, in which if you activate the desktop audio or your mic input from the settings, it means regardless of which scene you choose, those things will constantly be there. Whether you need the audio or not, it will be there. So let me just click OK. You can see I go to scene 4, it's still there. Go to scene 2, it's still there. So which is why you don't want it, because certain scenes you don't want your audio to be part of it. So you want to disable it from here. So if you need audio to be part of any scene or output, you come here, add them as source to that particular scene. So most times when you're streaming, you want your audio input on almost all the scenes. But even at that, there's still some scenes you don't want your audio input to be in. So you just probably want your audio output on it. For example, let's say I am playing a video on my system. When I'm playing the video on my system, I'm actually just playing audio from my system, which is the output of my system. So in that kind of scene, I wouldn't need my audio output capture and not audio input. So which is why this is very, very much more flexible than activating it from settings. You're going to be using this desktop or mic settings. That will be much more suitable if you are just having just a particular scene that you want to use throughout your live stream. So you can use this global audio device. So I think I've explained that. Now your meters is just showing how fast your meter moves when it detects audio signal. So let me just activate this desktop audio. For example, let's say I am playing this song here, just like you can see. So as you can see, this your meter is telling you how fast you want these meters to move. So if you set the meter fast, it moves fast. If you set it slow, it moves slow. So that's what that actually does basically. So coming back to this setting, I'll just leave it the way it is. So if you want to slow it down, you can slow it, but that doesn't really matter here. So the next thing here you want to check out is your sample peak and true peak. Now this sample peak, you want to leave it at OBS default, because the sample peak just shows the loudness of your audio signal within a given period of time, but it's not as accurate as this true peak. But this true peak eats a lot of CPU, in which you want to maximize your CPU as much as possible. Now, for your advanced monitoring, if you do not have an audio interface, yours should be default, but I believe if you're going to be streaming, you need an audio interface. So you can just select your audio interface, which is for now is this Focusrite that is connected to it. The next one now is this feature called disable audio docking. Now, let me just explain it in simple terms. Disable audio docking means whenever something is playing on your Windows device, OBS tries to suppress that audio automatically. Now, in filtering, when we go to the advanced, you can add compressor to do this work, but OBS just have this feature enabled that docks whatever audio is coming from your Windows down so that audio in OBS can shine more above it. It's just like a compressor. Now, this low latency audio buffering is for DEC and NDI outputs. Now, I think this is what was used before. This was one thing that was used before in OBS before it got upgraded. Hotkeys now, you can see here, you don't have to actually do the settings here. You can come here to do it. So this is just giving the option to also do the hotkey settings to mute stuff and to enable talk. Now the next part is your output. Now before I go to output, which will be the last thing, let me come to appearance. Now appearance, just how you want OBS to look like. So you have this default thing. I think yours will be set to default and to pick one for you. But yes, classic. Now the general tab, this is where you set some things generally. For example, your language, which you want to keep at English. Now, this open start dialog means when you open OBS, it shows you the start of your CPU. Now, let me just show you what the start is. So when you open OBS, it's just telling you to show you this first, so you could try it out to show you this once you open OBS. Now, hide OBS windows from screen capture. Now, what this does basically is when you're using OBS to screen record, basically it will show you every other thing minus this OBS windows. So you want to experiment with that. So I've explained, let me come again. When you click on hide OBS and you are screen recording, when you screen recording and your screen is on OBS itself, it will not screen record OBS. So we want to do a simple experiment. If you notice something on my display capture immediately, is this. Now, because I have set that settings on OBS, it's not even showing OBS, it's showing my default desktop. Now, if I unactivate this and click OK, you could see now, you could see OBS. So simply, it means that when I start to record anything or I'm going live, it will not show me OBS application. Now, your update. Now, this is where you set how OBS updates itself regularly. So you can leave that as that. Now, here's another place where it's important. Yours might not be like this, but I left this like this. Now, the first one you have here is the show confirmation dialog when starting stream. Now, this shows you a prompt opt, just like when you want to delete something and it asks you, are you sure you want to delete it? So it shows you, anytime you click start stream, it shows you, are you sure you want to start stream or something like that? Then you click yes or no. Same as this shows confirmation dialog when stopping stream. It will show you, okay, are you sure you want to stop it? Yes or no. Then the next one, show confirmation dialog when stopping recording. It will ask you, are you sure you want to stop recording? Yes or no. And the lastly one is automatically record when streaming. Now this is a good feature because probably you're streaming on Sunday and you definitely want to have a record so that in case during your streaming something goes wrong, you can actually just upload the service manually again on your channel. So you want to have this feature activated. Now the last one here is keep recording when stream stop. Now normally once your stream stop, it automatically stops your recording, but if you activate this feature, it will keep recording even after your streaming stops. So I don't see a reason why you want to do it, because most times once you stop streaming, you want to stop recording automatically. So you could mess around this and see what you can get. The next one here is the source alignment snapping. Now this source alignment snapping helps you snap things to various sections of your screen easily. So if I disable it, for example, and click OK, now to snap to the edge of my screen is difficult, but when I enable this feature, when I enable this snap alignment, it makes it easy for me to snap to the edges of my screen, center, up and down. So that's what that does for you. I think it's a good feature because if you want to move things around in OBS and you want it to get snapped to probably the edges or horizontally or vertically, this is going to help you. Now the snap sensitivity is telling how smooth and how fast your snapping is, especially when you're moving your mouse around. So you can mess around it if you want something much more slower, something much more faster or whatever. So just mess around it. Now this projector aspect, I will be leaving it out for this case. and I'll be doing it more in the advanced because it requires you using OBS as a projector, maybe having OBS on your system and projecting something out. Now this is much more useful when you want to stream Bible verse your live stream if you don't have a dedicated system for that. But one thing I would advise is that when you're doing live stream, you want to have a dedicated system for Bible verse. But if you do not have, I'll be covering how you could use this easy worship in OBS to also achieve that result. System tree, it's the tree function you can find here. So you want to leave it as the default way. If you disable it, OBS will not show on your system tray. Minimize to system tray when started. If you want to minimize OBS to your system tray when you start it instead of the tags bar, you could do that. But for me, I don't see any reason, so I just leave it like that. So the next one is the preview, which is hide overflow, overflow always visible, show overflow even when source is invisible, draw safe area EBUR, and show pixel alignment guides. Now let me go cover the ones that are activated first. Now this pixel alignment guide is this 340 156 you can see on the screen here. Look at this image now. This is your pixel guide. This image is not balanced because there's more space on the left than the right hand side, so you can adjust it like this. Now you can see it's more balanced horizontally. It's not at the center, left, right. So that's what that, if you have it deactivated, you won't see it here. So this draw EBUR, it's just going to show you area where it is saved for your image to be. So it's much more used in broadcasting frames and all of that. So you can see this is your safe areas to put your images and all of that. Now show overflow even when source is invisible. Now this overflow, it's very, very good and very, very useful because it shows you when your images are outside the screen. You can see this zebra crossing line below here. That's the show overflow. So it shows you when things are outside your screen zone or something is hiding under. So if you hide it, you will not see it when things are going outside the screen. There's no zebra crossing or any of those things there. I will leave this the way it is. Overflow is visible and show overflow even when source is invisible. So what this means is that even if the image we have below is not showing, to still show the preview line when it's out of the zone. So the next one is search known location for scene collection when importing. So you want to keep this on. So when you're importing a scene collection, this will help you search for the location for all those scenes to make sure you import the right scenes into OBS Studio. Now studio mode, transition to scene when double click. Now don't ever use this feature because sometimes you can mistakenly double click on your OBS and probably you don't even mean to transition it to the live stream. When you activate this feature, it will transition it to your live stream immediately. So I prefer using the manual method so that I know if I'm pressing transition, I'm sure of what I'm doing. So enable portrait and vertical layout. So you can mess around this and see what it gives you. So this is when I activate that, it showed me this nonsense, which I didn't like. So in case you have your OBS like this and you're wondering what you did that made it like that, you can come back here and click OK. So the last part is the multi-view. Now this multi-view is very, very handy because it allows you to see everything you have on your scene. To get that feature to see it, all you have to do is to come here and click multi-view windows. Now you can see various things you have on your scenes arranged. So if you have more scenes, it will arrange them like that and like that, which can be handy also. So the layout in which we have here is 24 scenes. That's why it showed 24 boxes. So this is something you want to have on, and it's good to have it. So click OK. The last part is the output mode. Now when you open your output mode, it will be in this simple mode. Now this simple mode is actually good because it allows you to set things up quickly and fast for your live stream. But we'll be going into the advanced mode because everything you have in the advanced mode will give you a better understanding of things you have in this simple mode. In the advanced mode, the first tab we'll have is the streaming. Now the streaming settings, audio track 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you have it just like that. So you just want to leave it as audio track 1. Now the audio encoder, you want to leave it at the FFmpeg AAC. Now, your video encoder, you want to leave it as 264. For streaming platform, they have their own video codec criteria. The easiest way to get each streaming platform criteria is to search on Google. So, for example, on YouTube all you have to do is to search YouTube bitrate requirement, and Facebook, you can just search requirement for Facebook Live. So YouTube bitrate, it will take you to this page where you can see all of these ones. Now, YouTube HDR video tech is H.265. Now, my system on just have 2.64, so I'll just use that basically. Now, for Facebook, this is Facebook on. Let me see. Facebook own is H264 encoded video. So all those grammars, you don't need to bother yourself with it anyway. So this is it, 264. That's what I have. Now, if you have Nvidia a graphics card, you might see something else, so you could select that also. Now, this rescale output, I don't want you to stress yourself with it. Now, if you're using bilinear, it's the fastest, but it's already stated it here that you might have blurry image. Now, this area we did combine some rubbish together to determine how it will rescale your output. Don't let me say rubbish, 4, 6, and 9 samples, but you don't want to bother yourself with all of that. So the one that OBS will use whenever you click disable is your cubic, which is this sharpened scaling, which creates a balance between quality, and it is much more stable, and it gives sharper image, and it is much more stable and use moderate CPU. Now, this line course, if you check some streaming criteria, they might tell you to use it, but note that this one eats a lot of CPU. It gives the sharpest image actually, but also it will eat more of your CPU. So one thing I do recommend is that you want to create a balance between CPU usage, quality, and speed. So I would go for this cubic. So the next one is you have the opportunity to set your rescale size. So most times you want to leave it at this 920 times 1080. So uniformity in OBS is very, very key. Now, the next part is the encoder setting, which is where you see this rate control, CBR, and whatever. Now, before we go to rate control, there's what we call bitrate. Now, bitrate, videos are made up in bits actually. Now, this bitrate refers to the numbers of bits that can be transferred or processed within a certain amount of time. Bitrate, in summary, is the amount of data you're sending to your streaming platform per second. Now, what will determine this bitrate will be your internet speed, your internet upload speed, and the streaming platform criteria. Now, each streaming platform has their own bitrate recommendation. For example, Facebook requires, for if you're streaming within 1080p at 30 fps, which will be the standard in which you are using to stream, they recommend 3000 to 6000 kps. Now, one thing I do recommend is that you don't want to use the max. You want to be somewhere maybe around 5000 kps, depending on your internet speed, in which I believe your internet speed, you should be using an Ethernet, not wireless. You cannot say, okay, because Facebook uses 6000. If you're streaming in multiple platforms, for example, YouTube allows higher, up to even more than 10 or even 15. But the issue now is when you're streaming to YouTube and Facebook simultaneously, even Twitch allows up to 6000. If you want to create a balance that will fit all of them criteria simultaneously, and also which is determined by the resolution you are using, which is 920 by 1080. For YouTube bitrate, for 1080 at 30 fps, they kept it at 10 mps, which is about 10,000 kps. Yeah, 10,000 kps bitrate. So this is the recommended bitrate for YouTube. You want to use YouTube bitrate criteria if you are streaming to YouTube and Facebook simultaneously. So the platform with the lowest bitrate, we want to use that your benchmark to determine the bitrate first before you check your internet speed. Now, when you check your internet speed, you can just come to Google and search internet speed, and you take it to a process. This is fast.com. So if you check your internet speed here is about 8.8 Mbps, and YouTube, this is about 8800 kps bitrate. And YouTube criteria was for 1080p at 30 frames per second. FPS means 30 frames per second is 10. So which means my upload speed is not really up to YouTube bitrate requirement, but it is more than enough for Facebook requirement, which is 3000 to 6000. Now, because Facebook require 3000 to 6000, because Facebook require 3000 to 6000 kps, you don't want to max it out. You might want to leave your bitrate about 5000. If you're streaming to multiple platforms, you keep it at 5000. Now, if you're streaming to just YouTube, you could use up to 7000, not the exact 8000, which is your upload speed rate. So just take note of that. So going back to the rate control, we have CBR, which is constant bit rate, which is the most recommendable for most streaming platform, and you will find it on their requirement site because it delivers your content to your streaming platform at a constant rate. YouTube also use CBR. Yes, bitrate encode is CBR. So these things are easy to check. All you have to do is to check what the streaming platform requires. So we have other ones like ABR, which is average bitrate, which will use probably like half of your bitrate to send informations. The first one maintains quality. The second one, this ABR, it balances quality and bitrate, and which is not what your streaming platform recommend. The next one is variable bitrate, which allocates more bit based on scene complexity. So you must have never seen any platform recommend this, and the last one is constant rate factor. So regardless of all these things here, what will determine what you will choose is what is recommended by your streaming platform. So you don't really need to bother yourself with too much grammar. Now, this keyframe interval is something also very, very important. It's the distance between two keyframes in a video or even a video stream. So because videos are made up of different keyframes, what will determine your keyframe is what your streaming platform requires. So most streaming platform requires 2. Basically, it's always stated there, 2 frames per second, frame type 2 bit frame per second. So you could see it here. Facebook wrote it clearly for you here. So Facebook recommends 2. So most times you want to leave it at 2. Now, your CPU usage, you have very fast and cool. So you want to leave it at very fast. Why it goes, the more CPU it eats. So you want to leave it at very fast, which is OBS default, because OBS wants the best for you. Now this profile, it determines how your encoder actually work. We have the baseline, main, and high. Now baseline is good for older device, while main is the most stable one, in which OBS will pick for you once you leave it as none, and high is higher quality, but it eats up more CPU. So you want to leave it at none, which OBS will pick as main for you. The next one is this tone. Now, depending on what you're streaming, if you're streaming film, you already have a preset here: film, animation, grain, still image, fast decode, and 0 latency. So my best advice for you is that if you're not sure of what you're doing, just leave it at none. OBS will pick the best and the default for you, which you favor what you're doing. But if you're sure of the type of stuff you want to stream, film and animation, you could select one of these. So the next part is recording. I'll be fast with this. Now you want to leave your recording on standard. So here is your recording part. You want to choose the folder where you want to store. Now if you want it to generate file name without space, you click this. Recording format MKV, definitely. Now I've explained why you want MKV, because if at some point something happens while you're streaming, you won't lose all your data. So you want to leave it at MKV. Your video encoder, you want to use same as the one you're using on your streaming encoder, which is 8.264. Then the audio encoder, you want to leave it at the FMEG AAC, which was what you selected on your streaming platform. So basically, audio track 1. Now custom Musa setting, you want to leave this. Now this automatic file split is very simple. It means it tells OBS to split your files, your section, into various files. For example, after 30 minutes, OBS should start another one, cut the files like that. So if you're the kind of person that don't really like large files, you can also set it manually by triggering it with a key. But for me, I'll just leave it like that. After this type, you can also have custom FFmpeg or be whatever. I don't see any reason why you want to come to the custom output, because the standard gives you all the basic things you need. The next thing is your audio. Now this audio, you want to set your audio bitrate based on what your platform requires. So most platforms support 128. So you have to always have this tab open or print it out if possible. So you have to see audio bitrate 128 kps and to do not exceed 256 kps. YouTube supports 128 kps, so for stereo. So you want to use most of all these requirements, the preferred version, and what will work in all platforms. So this is something you want to take note of. So the last part is the replay buffer. Now this replay buffer, it's nice because let's say you're streaming a long game instead, and probably you don't even want to use the recording and you just want to be able to pick up highlights, or you're even recording and you just want to pick up highlights of a particular point for like 5 minutes, you understand? This replay buffer works for that. So when you activate it, you choose the amount of seconds. Now you have to be careful with this because the higher you set it, the more RAM it eats. So it's on your system because it's saving those files on your RAM, where you can actually now download them and it moves to your disks. So you have to be careful with this. Let's say I activate it and I click OK. You'll see something like start replay buffer. So when I'm recording, for instance, and I'm also on the start replay buffer, so it will be storing information for every 60 seconds. Every 60 seconds like that. So if I do something I like within that 60 seconds, all I need to do is to hit download non-stop. So it will download it and save it in my drive. So you can see this is the replay buffer. So you could use those replay to create a video. So if, for example, where this can be useful is during messages, the pastor is throwing some, key points. So you can have your replay buffer on, so that some of those key points, maybe you set it about 1 minute or 2 minutes at max, depending on your RAM size, you can easily be saving that, and by the end of the whole video, you could have some short clip of key points and highlights of the whole service that you can just easily mesh together and edit and have something to post instead of having to go call them from the original full recording. I think this is what a lot of churches do to get those highlights from their pastors' messages. I think I've covered everything on the settings apart from the streaming, which I'll be coming to that later.